Happy 12 minutes left of Wednesday. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Center Semi-Overnighter. This is going to be an open mic, so I'll try to answer as many questions you guys have. Don't know how long this was going to last. Kind of in a little bit of pain, actually. Something to my back. And it feels super stiff. I don't know what the hell I did. So I'm leaning back in my little back massager chair thing, and it's popping it a little bit, but man, it sucks when I don't know what I actually did to actually hurt myself. Oh, well. Hello, everybody. Let me say hi to the chat real quick. Let's see. Hi, Aaron. My second favorite Australian. No, I'm just kidding. You're my first. What's going on, Vince? Yep. If you guys, streamlabs.com/the Sci-Fi Center. Pretty soon I'm going to be, if you want to leave a tip, that is, pretty soon I'm going to be actually using it to stream through. So that ought to be fun. See how I screw that up. What's going on, Clint? How you doing, Fourth? Al Batcher, what's going on? So thought I might have something more on the Writers Guild strike or whatever. So far, nothing. So right now, my prediction of 6 to 9 months is from this point is looking not good as far as but it's looking like a stable prediction, unfortunately. To me, it all comes down to the fact that these guys are just not going to want to open their books to let you know what kind of revenue they're getting off of all these other revenue streams. They're not going to want to be truthful about the numbers that, it's just streaming numbers. And like I said, everybody told me, oh, the streaming bubble is popped. Everybody's going back to the theater. That is absolute bullshit. These guys know they got a cash cow in streaming and they don't want to share. Sure, there's people going to see certain movies, but for every Barbie and Oppenheimer, there's going to be a Shazam or a Mission Impossible 7 or, something else that, for whatever reason, meritless or not, is not going to draw the big money and the consistent money that they want. So my suspicion is that they're going to drag this on as long as they can before a federal mediator gets involved and says, you're going to have to show your books in order for you guys to tell these people that their demands are not realistic or ridiculous. We're going to need proof that you're struggling or whatever. And then at that point, they'll give in. But it's going to, the producers can last another 6 to 9 months without it hurting them. I don't know if most of the actors and most of the writers can. So we'll have to see on that one. Happy birthday. My birthday's next month. I always get happy around my birthday because the pure fact that it means that I'm headed into fall. And all the things I like about a calendar year are generally in fall. I love the weather in fall. I love the fact that daylight savings gets reversed and I get the hour back that I got screwed up 6 months ago. Football season. We're about a month away from hockey season, basketball season. It's a little bit of a tense time for Major League Baseball because usually my Dodgers are finding a way to choke away a playoff series. But you never know. They could win it this year. So everything I like about fall is about, 2-3 weeks away? Woohoo! Yeah. Lost Voyage of Demeter was actually a pretty good movie. But once again, it didn't do all that great. And these theaters know that. These theaters know that. And they look at a movie like, and we see a box office bomb because we're outsiders and we're, have our face pressed up against the window, but they can still make money off of The Last Voyage of Demeter. That's a kick-ass date movie. If you don't want to spend a lot of money at the theaters and you just want to sit with a couple of people or maybe a date, Last Voyage of Demeter, especially if you're into vampires, if you're into Bram Stoker, I think that's a perfect movie for VOD, video on demand. Here comes Ford. But it shows our movies are not going to syndication for royalties. Do the actors deserve streaming money? Yes, they do. because you're still making money off the same entertainment. Here's my opinion on it. For the same reason that you would have given them that money going to syndication, you would give them that money going to streaming. Now, syndication, you're getting it, you're cutting up the ad revenue. With streaming, you're still cutting up revenue. It's actually more. You're getting subscriber money. So for the same reasons you would give them money that they deserve a cut for syndication, they would deserve a cut. You are still making money off of their likenesses over and over again, over a continued amount of time. So I would say yes. Oh, hey, there you go, Chappie. That's to answer your question if I was going live tonight. Here I am. Sorry, I'm drinking right now. I don't know. Maybe my back's hurting because I was dehydrated. I don't know. Whew, man. So I'm drinking. So like I said, if you guys can see me now, I'm literally leaning back like an astronaut, just making sure the little bally things get right into my back. Which version of Superman 2 do you prefer, the theatrical cut or the Donner cut? The theatrical cut, no hesitation there. The Donner cuts, I mean, I've always preferred the theatrical version of those. Question: have you been seeing the news about former NFL player Michael Oher? Yeah, and that sucks. I mean, that was such a happy, feel-good story, and now it just doesn't feel good anymore. Nothing is sacred. I haven't watched movies that double their box office after the first week. That's a weird criteria. You're weird, Fourth. I know you don't like Rotten Tomatoes, but Blue Beetle's at 82%. I still don't like Rotten Tomatoes. I just find it's useless, and that's critic scores. Which is, if there's something I don't like, it's what I don't like when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes or critics is we put too much weight on what comes out of there. And a lot of people end up making their decisions on going to a movie one way or another based on them. And I'm like, it's your money, And I think that Blue Beetle's going to have a good audience score. Now, where Blue Beetle might run into some problems is that, great, you got 83% of both audience and maybe about 83% of critics across what number? Now, I don't think Blue Beetle's going to do as bad as a lot of people have been saying. They've been projecting it. They started off with projections of 17 million, and then they raised it to 30 million, which is still bad, by the way. But I think by the end of its entire run, whether it be in the theaters, PVOD, streaming, I think it'll make its money back, and I think they'll be fine. I don't plan on seeing it in the theaters. I never did. I hate the character of Blue Beetle, all versions. Ted Kord, Jaime Reyes, and for that measure, Booster Gold too. And they used to buddy them up, and they used to come in and fuck up Justice League. And I always told myself, as a Justice League collector, a lifelong Justice League collector, when those two came into the comic, it was time for me to stop collecting. So I think Blue Beetle, like I said, I think people are setting their expectations low because of, that's what you do with DC right now. But I think Blue Beetle has a demographic that's built in that those other movies don't have. Us brown folk, we don't have a lot headlining superhero movies. I think you can count them on like 3 or 4 fingers. And Black Panther is 2 of them. So when you have an ethnic group, a Hispanic ethnic group, or black, we just don't have a lot of representation. So I think a lot of people who aren't even comic book movie fans are going to cross over to see Blue Beetle. So that's my take on it. Now, not being able to advertise it and getting on these shows and, do the press junket, that's going to hurt it just like it's hurt other movies. But I do think that it's going to, at least, worst case scenario for Blue Beetle is that it breaks even. And then it makes extra money elsewhere. But I don't think it's going to be a bomb. I think people are a little over-exaggerating that a little bit. Okie dokie. Hello, Anthony. Hey, nobody say hi to Fourth One when you come in here. Screw that guy. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. I wish I had seen it. So yeah, I just answered that. I expect it to have a pretty decent weekend. I think it will eventually, worst case scenario, and I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. Is that it breaks even? That's worst case scenario. I don't think it'll lose a lot of money. I don't think it'll lose any money. But I think that it didn't cost that much to make. So it's not like, and they didn't spend. They spent 125 on Shazam and this, but they also spent a lot of money pushing Shazam out there. They've limited Blue Beetle to pretty much, for the most part, networks and shows that Warner Brothers already owns. I've seen some in other places, but for the majority of it, it's been on Warner Brothers territory, so they're saving money there. So I think you heard it here, 11:59, 8:16. I think Blue Beetle is going to, at the worst case scenario, at the end of its run, at the end of its money making, is going to break even. It could possibly do better because, like I said before, Black and Brown, we just don't have a lot out there. So unlike Shazam, unlike Flash, unlike Black Adam, you had The Rock, but for the most part, we just don't have a lot of characters now. On the flip side of that, it's a character nobody knows and the general public doesn't know. That might be a different. I mean, you had Miles Morales, but he was taking on the mantle of Spider-Man, a historic flagship character. Blue Beetle's not a flagship character, so I'm not saying it's gonna make like Oppenheimer money, but I don't think it's gonna make Shazam money. I don't think it's gonna be like, oh my goodness, it just gets worse every second. So break even, worst case scenario. Best case scenario, makes a little bit. From what I hear, it's a fun movie. I just don't, like I said, I'm spent with DC right now mentally, and I never cared about Blue Beetle the character enough to really pry open the wallet. You know what I mean? And since we didn't promote it, I really didn't, make it. Did you mean King of the Hill? Or what are you talking about? Oh, related to King of the Hill. Oh, yeah, the guy that played the Wendy passed away this week. Doesn't matter if it has a good score. Rotten Tomato, Blue Beetle is still going to bomb it. I just don't have the. It's not going to do like great. I just don't think there's enough character recognition there right now. But I don't think it's going to bomb. I think there will be enough good word of mouth. I think there will be enough, I've never, well, listen, I'll go on record. I never have, and I have no plans on ever watching Cobra Kai, but a lot of people do, and that might pull it over. Like I said, I'm not rooting against Blue Beetle. I just don't care about it at this moment. I mean, something could change though. You guys rush out of the movie theaters. You go, well, you just got to see it. There's something in there, and who knows? Who knows how I might feel on Friday or Saturday? And I mean, but I haven't had enough time to go see the movies that I really, really wanted to see lately because I've been busy. So I doubt that I'm going to jump out of my shoes to go see a movie that I'm really had no plans of going to see. So. William, you should watch Blue Beetle in theaters. You already watched Shazam and Black Adam. Might as well. Nah, I mean, that's not a good enough reason for me to watch that in theaters. Sorry. Like I said, my mind right now is where it is, but that's not a hard, pass for me. Right now I just don't see. I am I know a lot of you guys are not. I am a shared universe guy. And I just don't feel energized enough about what I want out of DC as far as shared universe to really be compelled to see this. So, HBO Max, baby. Good question. William, what storyline for the X-Men comics do you think Kevin Feige might mix up to create his version of X-Men? Well, he might stray away from the ones they already did in the Fox movies. So Days of Future Past might be out of question. I definitely would an origin story with Magneto, or their first class with Magneto. I definitely think Magneto has to be involved in it. So I'm assuming their first storyline should be around him. That's a classic, Kevin Feige pretty much followed the origin story model for the most part. I mean, if you look at the Avengers, with the exception of Black Widow, who replaced the Wasp and Ant-Man and all that because they had bigger plans for her, they pretty much built the Avengers the same way they do in the first 5 issues of the comic. So, also, I don't know which version of X-Men he's going to use. I know everybody wants Wolverine, but Wolverine wasn't an X-Men until well into like maybe the 12th, 13th year of the comics publication. And I don't know if they're ready to use Wolverine. So I don't know if they use the founding members. I'm assuming that Magneto, or they might use Apocalypse. I mean, it all depends. I don't know, but I'm assuming that it's going to be some type of origin story for them, because I think that them and Fantastic Four are going to be the cogs of what goes on for the next 10 years in MCU. So I don't think they'll just put them in there like they did Tom Holland Spider-Man, just skip the origin story. I think that because their origin story has been told before, he's going to want to reshape that narrative. So I'm thinking you'll see the original 5 or original 5 X-Men and Magneto. That's my guess. Watching Blue Beetle on IMAX screen Thursday night, Friday as well. Have fun, man. Let me know what you think about it. What's the deal with the whole controversy over The Blind Side? That's a great movie. It was based. I guess the story that it was based on wasn't as American Pie and happy ending as the film portrayed. But you know what? And I don't think it has anything to do with the movie. The movie's a movie. Movies take their own interpretations of stuff. So, but it's just sad to hear that. I always thought that was a feel-good story, but well, people are now telling Sanjay that's stupid. I heard about that. That's dumb. It's a movie. This movie, they could have told a completely fictional story and gone their own direction, no matter what the real life thing was, and it would still have no bearing on her, ability to play that character. So I think that's silly, but I heard that. Also, speaking of King of the Hill, have you heard Dale Gribble's voice actor? Yeah. We covered that a couple of days ago. Yeah, 63 years old. Chappie Bloomcat. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but that doesn't have her. I mean, like I said, it's a movie. Spike Lee played a character in Malcolm X that did not exist, that it was an amalgamation of a bunch of different characters. If he got nominated for and won an award, he would still get that award because it's a movie. I mean, I would see maybe even if the screenwriter had won an Academy Award, it's a movie. It's a fictional. Yeah, I think the only reason if a screenwriter won for adaptive screenplay and you're going to say, well, the story wasn't true, I don't even think that matters because it's still an adaptation of the screen. I don't think adaptations of characters and stories are suspect when it comes to Academy Awards. Are you the best actor or actress or talent that year amongst the other people that are nominated? I don't think this will have any bearing at all on that one. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And dude, being a comic book collector in the late 80s and early 90s, they made them pivotal points of storylines that I just didn't appreciate, but that's just me. Did like him in Titans though. I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm just hearing about this now, to be honest with you. Would you consider Wonder Woman representation of brown people since no. Not as much, maybe, but not as much as us though. Not as much as like, what Black Panther would mean to us. And I mean that's you're nah. Well, it all depends on who you are, I guess, is what the represent. I can't really answer that question because I'm not in that ethnic group. I know coming from a Black point of view that we just don't have a lot. I mean, Captain America is our next one coming out. I mean, we have some big characters, Nick Fury, Samuel Jackson, but even prior to Ultimate Marvel and Nick Fury taking over that role, Nick Fury is a white guy. Nick Fury was a white guy for 50 years. And then on animation, we have Miles Morales. I mean, things like that, but we just don't have a lot. So I don't know if, Gal Gadot is Israeli. I mean, it's representation of Israelis, Israeli-born citizens. But I mean, so yeah, But from my comment where I'm coming from, as far as like Jaime Reyes and things like that, and black and brown in America, as far as especially in America, we just don't have a lot. So I think that's what's going to help Blue Beetle make its money. Hearing the family aspects and Zolo is the lead, and I'm hoping I don't even think I'm pronouncing it wrong. Is it Zolo or is it Zolo? If I'm screwing it up, somebody pronounce it in the chat for me. As the lead is what makes the movie great, and all who have already seen it said the same. Superhero part and a game changer, but it's still solid. I also heard some people say it was standard fare. It was kind of like Shazam. I like I said, I have no doubt that it's going to be a solid movie. It's just that like right now where I'm at with superhero movies, it's just not what I'm looking for. It's just not what I'm in, what I'm all in for. And I'm not going to boycott it. I'm not going to tell people not to see it. I mean, because it sounds like a lot of fun for some people. It's just that where I'm at right now with DC films and what's going on, and I just don't have that energy for this movie right now. But I'm not going to tell anybody else not to go have fun. Go see it. Go have fun. Go see it. Support the hell out of it. I'm going to support it from right here in my living room. That support matters too. But everything good, I have no reason to doubt everything good about it. It's not for me right now. Oh, so he thumped that up recently. So there you go. Like I said, I did not hear anything about this until like just a couple of days ago. Let's be honest, we'll never get game-changing superhero movies anymore. We've seen a lot. That I don't believe. I understand where you're coming from, but I still think there's room for us to be involved. Those aren't headliners, though. Those are not headliners. And even if you did milestone movies, I think they'll do well. But a Miles Morales movie would probably make more than all of them combined because he's taking the mantle of an iconic character, and none of these characters, are to that level. Which is one of the main things that could hinder Blue Beetle because comic book geeks know who he is, but for the most part, and then when it comes to DC, it's something else I've seen when it comes to DC, and you really can't necessarily compare it to Marvel. People will come out for the big names. They will come out for the most part. I mean, they were coming out. I mean, until DC kind of screwed the pooch on that one, but they'll come out for Batman. They'll come out for Superman if they are the headliner. If Superman headlines, they make money. If Batman headlines, they make money. Wonder Woman doesn't put out like 1984. But if Wonder Woman 2 had been out been as good as Wonder Woman the original, then you would be talking about another hit on your hands with Wonder Woman 3. Because people will come out for the headliners. Proven thing about DC, unfortunately, is they're not going to come out for the Z-listers. And that's not me taking another shot at the Z-listers again. DC average moviegoers, they just don't come out for these obscure characters or characters that they perceive to be obscure. Blue Beetle, amongst comic lore, obviously not obscure, but to the general audience, it's not the same thing. That's why you can do a Joker. You don't have to have anything in a Joker movie. Everybody knows who the Joker is. I could go out with a picture of the Joker, any version of the Joker you give me. Carmine Infantino, anybody, any version of the Joker, I could come out with a picture of it on a 8x10, and everybody from all over the world will be able to tell me who that is. If I do the same thing with Blue Beetle, people are going to be asking me, "Am I selling something, or what's my problem? Do I need some water?" I mean, so it's a different level. When you talk about these characters. How are you doing, J.R. Sever? What would you say at this point is the best way for fans to go about advocating for the finish of the Snyderverse arc? Probably animation. Animation or in a comic book form. I would, to be honest with you, animation's cheap, still gives you the motion, still gives you the voices. But comic book, I sort of like it because I'm biased a little bit because I'm a comic book guy, but it puts the story under the complete control of Jim Lee. And whatever I'm getting in that comic book, I know that's probably what I would have gotten in that storyline. But animation, like I said, I gave my plan a couple months ago. I still need to get around to illustrate that. Is you take everything that's ever been made that connects the storyline together, all the way up to the Flash, Blue Beetle, if you want to continue it, and you make special DVD, Blu-ray sets. Now, physical media is not doing great, but when you come into collector sets and special DVDs and special packaging, those things do well. And in each of those things, I would have a piece of the final Darkseid arc story. And they would be collectible, and then you could do it that way. But I would do it animation-wise because you would keep your cost down, and you would still get the same effect. A lot of people don't want that. Some people don't want that because they say they want, live action or bust. But I think this would be pretty cool. And I think you could use different forms of animation in the same fashion that they did in the Animatrix, the Matrix stuff, and the same way they did with Blade Runner 2049. You could have some live action in there, but I would do the majority of it. I think it would be kind of cool. And you would have something, you could buy. I remember I described a complete set that was the Earth being blackened by Darkseid's arrival when you turn it around, and then they would have all the DVDs in there and the complete story. Or you could buy the Batman versus Superman one. That's Batman's Batmobile with the top that comes off, and it would have like little action figures with Superman and Batman standing on the Batmobile, and then that version of their story is in there. Each one would have a version of their story that took place during that Darkseid arc. That way you're making money and you're finishing the storyline. But yeah, that's the way I go with it. What's a different DC property you think can evaluate the genre? Did you mean to use evaluate? I think I know what you're asking me, and my answer to that question is going to be the Legion of Superheroes. And see, that's where I would use the Snyderverse as a base, because I wouldn't want to put the future that Legion of Superheroes exist in James Gunn's universe, because everything that changed in James Gunn's universe could affect that future. So I would want it in an alternate, already established one. So Legion of Superheroes for me. Which is kind of weird. Well, most people consider Rock Samoan not black, even though his father is black. Okay. Here's the thing, and this is coming from someone who's black. Whenever you have any black in you, a lot of, especially our society, considers you black. If there's a mixed race and you're black, and the dominant features are black, a lot. The only difference is usually like with Asian, because there's other dominant features there. But like, say for instance, when people speak of Barack Obama's mother was white. He's black. His father was black. And he is largely considered the first black president, even though technically he's biracial. So that's where that comes from. Now with The Rock comes from, he's not just Samoan. He comes from a legendary Samoan bloodline that is a royalty in wrestling. So not only is he just Samoan, and in terms of wrestling in the world that he was in for 20 years, he is part of literally what is that family he comes from, and I always pronounce it wrong. The Anahawi family, probably screwed up, is legendary. It goes back the High Chief Peter Maivia. Roman Reigns comes from it. The Usos come from it. Rikishi comes from it. It's his entire family line. So it's not just the fact that he's Samoan. He's Samoan, and he's half of a very large. Yokozuna comes from it. Umaga comes from it. There's so many people that come from the Rock's bloodline that's different. Now, if he weren't known to that family, And if this wrestling heritage wasn't highlighted, that wasn't highlighted as much as it was, people will look at The Rock, and unless they knew his history, might just say he's black. Now, none of that is technically, I mean, you should always ask, but a lot of time when you see perception is that, those are the dominant features you see, which is all right. I mean, I guess I can't really blame people, but, as you learn more about somebody, that should change everything. So there you go. Hopefully, I hope I explained that right. I mean, I wouldn't want to explain it in a way that make people feel dumb. But yeah, it's not just the fact that The Rock is half Samoan. It's that Samoan part is like legendary. Speaking of brown, I've been buying snacks from a locally owned Mexican store near me. Mexican cakes, probably the best. I mean, the theatrical cut of Superman 2 is fine, but Richard Donner cut of Spirit, I have to disagree with you there, Chappie. Meteor Man, Black Man, okay. Like I said, these are all, See, when Black Panther was made, Black Panther is a top-tier character. He's one of the first handful of characters that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created together, so that's the difference between some of these other ones you're bringing up. I am pretty sure that Young Justice fans will come pick it up, but I don't know how big Young Justice audience is. You got to remember, I mean, a lot of people who watch animation think everybody else watches animation. Will that be enough to boost it up? Maybe. Everybody. I'm still waiting for Batman Beyond, and in the studios look at Batman Beyond as probably a money loser. But everybody who watches Batman Beyond thinks that there's billions of people out there that watch it, so who knows? I think that the fact that we don't have a lot of representation, us brown folks, I think that's what's gonna bring it to, and it's a family movie too. It's a safe movie. This is the kind of movie, from everything I've heard, you can take a family to. So there you go. I mean, you're going to have whole families coming to this movie, which is going to boost your box office. Yeah. The Rock is one of those people that you would associate as both because of the history of his family. Because otherwise, you wouldn't, unless you talk to him or you asked him what's your nationality, you may never know. But because he is part of that family, that is literally part of his persona. That's part of his public-facing info. Let's see. Same here. I don't care to watch the Blue Beetle all the way for streaming. Yeah, like I said, if somebody comes out, like and there's a handful of people, and they're not critics, but people who I trust when it comes to movie going. They come out and say there's something you just can't miss. But right now, there's just nothing about Blue Beetle that says I can't miss it. Right now. But if you may in 3 days see me posting a selfie outside the movie theater in front of a Blue Beetle poster. It depends. Right now, I just don't feel it. But shit changes. Now, I don't entirely disagree with this. And if you remember, Forth, a month back, I said that as well. I say they should start and they should do series and build up like I was. In fact, this is exactly what I was saying, because the one thing that series gives you is time. Time to develop a character, time to develop supporting characters, time to develop all that, and people can get connected to it and feel like they know it, and then you can lead them into something else, and then it's not such a risk when it comes. You can take obscure characters, mix them with mainline characters, and people get to know them at the same time over the course of 8 to 10 episodes. And then you start graduating. I like I said before, I would have a cycle to where everything started on Max, and then you did it in waves. Like wave 1 starts, and that's exclusively on Max, and then wave 2, and as we get towards down the end, that first wave now gets their movie, and then you start just rotating them in there like that. I just, like I said, and you're doing it on a format that only costs $14-15 or whatever to enjoy all this. So when it's time for you to shell out the $15-20 for a single movie, you've spent all that time on Max gaining their trust. Because right now, the biggest thing about DC is people just don't trust the brand. Most of their struggles 60% of all of DC's problems right now is the fact that they don't trust the brand. So yeah, I kind of agree with that. I kind of touched on that a few weeks ago. William, would you rather watch a remake of? All right, here you go, guys. Now, dude, come on, Anthony. Seriously, dude. I'm in no rush. I have no sense of urgency or real forefront desire to see Blue Beetle at the moment. That could change. There's a difference. I would not. No, I don't want to see Howard the Duck again under any circumstances. Blue Beetle is just something I'm not into at the moment. Big difference. I still want my Howard the Duck special presentation. Yeah, you can have it, buddy. Oh, the production for Blindside will be sued for making that poor man seem like Forrest Gump. So nah. It's a movie based on a real guy and a family. It's true, but movies are allowed to take licenses. That's stupid. You want Sambo? Yeah, that's not happen. That's not going to happen. Based on real life, equal real life events gave us the idea. We changed it to make it entertaining for a movie. Yeah, it's a movie. It's entertainment. Nobody's giving up. And she didn't do anything. All she did, she did her job, got paid, got an award. Yeah, it's a movie. It is. It affected others' life, though. He was the first round pick, and for years, all interviews went like, yeah. When he's suing, then that's up, that he's well within his rights. But as far as like the movie side of it, that might be cool. By the way, Mighty Rex, I don't know a lot of people. I mean, if they recognize the history of your avatar, 6-year-old me and John Hurt was in this movie. Watched The Elephant Man in theaters, if I recall, because I was doing a book report on it or some type of report. I forgot it was back in the 80s. One of the few movies and stories that I studied and watched and know of that really, really just I wish this guy, John Mayer, was all he wanted to do was live a normal life, and he had this disfigurement. And when things were finally starting to turn around for him as much as they possibly could, he ends up accidentally dying because the weight of his head on his neck when he tried to sleep, because he had to sleep in a certain way or else he would break his neck. And I guess one night he wanted to sleep just as a normal man, and he ended up breaking his neck, and that's how he died. I mean, it was like, damn, it's just it is that movie just touched me in a way. Who are game changers visionaries that you can make game changer superheroes? James Gunn ain't it. I disagree with that. I think James Gunn can do it. I just think he's up against a bunch of stuff, some of them of their own creation, that that might hinder it. But I think James Gunn will do just fine. Plus, it's not just him. He's probably going to have other voices in the room, that'll have input. He's just doing Superman. But some of the ideas that he has laid out, if executed properly, are going to be are going to be game changing stuff. The Paradise Lost, I think, would be game changing. I think the Green Lantern show, just by the fact that we've been getting a Green Lantern live action, that's changing the game right there. So I'll have to disagree with you at the moment for this one. Yeah, I don't. It's not even. I don't think it's going to make money. I actually think Superman's probably going to lose money. I think a lot of the stuff that they come out of the gate with is going to lose money simply because of the state that DC is in right now and the decisions that the past regimes have made and some of the decisions that the current regime has made. So they're going to have to take that one in the balls until things get better with the second round. Yeah, but Wonder Woman 1984 didn't do well because it was still released around COVID. And movie wouldn't do as well. No, it didn't do well because it was a bad movie. Wonder Woman 84 didn't do well because it was a bad movie. I mean, There was a lot of movies. I mean, Dune was released around COVID. Godzilla versus Kong was released right before we even had a vaccine. Wonder Woman 84. Granted, yeah, and it was released on Christmas. I mean, we people were still. When was Wonder Woman 84 released? Because I really hate that movie. It's mockery of the 80s too, a decade that I grew up in. Like, damn it. Wonder Woman 84. It's Wonder Woman 2. So, all right. So it was released December. It was released on Christmas Day. 2020. So right then you're still in a comic, but so I could see the argument for COVID affecting it because we were still 4 months away from the vaccine, and they didn't do a lot of marketing. So let's see, and it did do well on streaming, so I'll give it that. But I think if they had released that and now, I think Wonder Woman 84 would bomb. I think once enough people saw that movie and got out into the ether, I think Wonder Woman 84 would have taken it right. I mean, it would because it was just a bad movie. It was just a bad movie. Sorry. Now is the perfect time for team ups like Justice Society or Justice League Dark. I don't know about the Justice League Dark as a group yet. Justice Society, I think you could do well with. Because they're easily explainable. But I think if you're going to do Justice League Dark, you need to get that Justice League going first before you go to that one. William, is there certain parts, or for example, Captain America or Iron Man, that you were happy with when they didn't put in a movie that were part of the comics that you felt would work live action? Nah, not really. I was just okay with it overall. I mean, I visually, when it comes to Captain America, I'm glad that he didn't look like he did in the comic books. I mean, the first costumes that he had when he first started out looked kind of silly, but by the end of Captain America: First Avenger, his costume was kick-ass, and I think I'm glad that they took more from his Ultimate Marvel look than they did from his classic look. So when it comes to Iron Man, Iron Man actually blew me away as far as expectation goes. I think I think they just did perfectly with that one. So. Exactly. That's what Series WB and James Gunn needs to do now. Finish the Snyderverse animation comic. I wouldn't even want James Gunn necessarily doing it. He could benefit from it, but I would let James Gunn do his thing. James Gunn has a different mindset about where he wants to take these characters, and I really want somebody like Jay Oliva, Jim Lee, or Zack Snyder to be the ones to handle that part of the story. Obviously, they could work with him, because they could propel his story. That he's currently telling, but I wouldn't. I just want to have him focused on what he's doing, personally. Let's see. No, I've heard it pronounced several different ways in the same show, but I know I'm jamming it up. Yeah, Blood Brothers, but they're considered part of the same. Up and away, Handyman. Oh my goodness. I love Meteor Man. It took weeks for John Cheadle to get the gold out of his hair. Oh, sorry. I'm reading the chat right from StreamYard. Sorry. All right. Let's see. Length in some of the scenes. I think I did this with Enosh where we were talking about this, where we broke that down. William, can the concept of Legion of Doom from DC Comics work with live action, or would that be too ridiculous? You would need time, but I wouldn't go there with that. It's probably going to be more espionage and intrigue. That's what I would sound. Yeah. You know what? I think if Troma would have done that movie, the expectations would have been Troma expectations. By the way, it still blows me away. Mario Puzo co-wrote the Godzilla trilogy. She wrote the first two Superman movies. Well, that's what he did. That he was a screenwriter. He was an author. I have not. I just saw the teaser film. Not the film, but the thing where it's a silhouette of Peter Dinklage. All right, I'm just kind of skipping through these right now, just so I can get to the end. I'm just picking out something else I've been thinking with Marvel doing Secret Wars and all the comebacks and cameos involved in that. Doesn't that make it harder for WGC? I mean, there's a lot of things that makes it harder for WB is to say no Snyderverse. They've just every time that they've done something, they've just made things worse in that regard. I be honest with you, I'm ready for. I think the biggest blight on them right now is just to resolve it. You have these loose threads hanging, and you just haven't resolved it. But you're telling me to get excited for this new thing coming up. It's like your history is incompletion. Your history is just dropping the ball and leaving it and walking away. That's not the most endearing history, when you're trying to sell someone on something new. So with Marvel doing Secret Wars and doing, what they did, it's different because they had credibility. Just like I said the other day before, if Marvel wanted to do a full reboot, they could get away with it. They could do it and it would be successful because they have the credibility and the history and the fulfillment of what they've started to do it. DC has none of those things. So you can't really compare the two companies because they've handled themselves and conducted themselves in such a manner that a one decision for one can't be what's for the other. It's just not the same world, unfortunately. William, blame Hollywood for that. Don't blame the family or Michael or no. I mean, it's Hollywood. Oh yeah, by Elephant Man. Yeah, I was really that's one of my. Yeah, but didn't you say that they did? If they did a reboot of Howard the Duck, that it would be deemed a character from the worst comic? It could, because to be honest with you, I'm surprised that they didn't do it in Guardians of the Galaxy, because he did a cameo there. But they could still do it though, because the Man Thing is there, and I'm surprised that I was actually a part of me was looking for Howard the Duck to show up in that special that they did. And by the way, I really enjoyed that special. But if Howard the Duck were to show up there, that would be appropriate if we read the comics. Mm-hmm. Hold on, checking my Streamlabs thing here. Nah, it was Christmas Day. I remember. I watched it right as it streamed. I'm telling you, look at Generic Gun, Suicide Squad. Look, the movie looked cheap, poorly shot and digital. I actually enjoyed all those aspects of it. I enjoyed the Suicide Squad, but even then, whether I enjoyed it or not is not relevant. That was the task at hand is different than that. We're doing a movie like that, and now you're running the whole show, and you're giving an entirely different set of tools to make a movie with, and a different mandate. So it's really, like I said, not necessarily the most fair comparison. Congratulations. I'm glad you like it. I thought it was awful. Told you Dark was early wait without Justice League. You don't need Superman, Batman. Yes, you do. If you don't want to make any money, yeah, go ahead and release Justice League Dark and without having a proper Justice League out there. See, that's the problem. That is exactly what DC's problem is right now. These movies aren't failing because of hardcore geeks who know these characters are not showing up. These movies are failing because you put a bunch of obscure characters that nobody cares about at this point. And I'm not saying that can never be the case, but you are relying on Z-listers to bring you to the bank instead of creating an infrastructure of characters that people already know and can connect to and that are iconic. Those are going to be that's what opens the door for the Z-listers. So you do a Justice League Dark or any of these other obscure things without a plan for the Trinity, you're asking to just, why don't you just open up the toilet lid and just pour that money down there, because that's what you're asking to do. The reliance on these is the problem. I meant Justice League Dark as the sequel to Connor Reeves Constantine. You might get that in an Elseworlds. But are you saying Wonder Woman 84 is worse than Howard the Duck? Nah. Question, is Lloyd Kaufman Troma films nah, I never got the sense that they were. Who knows? That might be the next step. William with the apostrophe between O and A would use it pronounce. Oh, okay. You tell me how to. The so it's Hawaii. Like I said, he said it the other night when I was watching something with him in it, and then someone else said it. I think it may have been Roman Reigns or Jey Uso, and they said it sort of differently. They said it with different emphasis, but I'll figure it out. I saw it. At the time, do you think it was a good idea of day-and-day theater release back when COVID happened? And why do you think this is backfire? I know it's a Jason. I don't think it was a bad idea at all. You weren't going to be able to. You were sitting on these movies, and you were going to lose money. And not all these movies. I know that the Tom Cruise model is like, well, look at, they waited and released Top Gun, and they made $1 billion. Well, none of these movies on the schedule that they released were Top Gun. Even movies on this schedule that I like, The Matrix, or whatever, that Resurrections was a joke. They were released that in the movie theaters just by itself. It was going to lose money. Oops, did I get a new subscriber? Yeah, I heard the sound. Minecraft Moon Mate, thank you for subscribing. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Center. If any of these movies had been like the blockbuster types, I don't think they would have released them. But if you look at these movies that are on there, I don't know. I mean, I think that if any of these movies would have been flirting with $1 billion or anything like that, or even in the 800 or 900 million area, I don't think these movies got released. But I don't see anything on the schedule that was a earth-shattering movie. I knew the Suicide Squad was going to struggle even without COVID, because of the fact that, like I explained before, you can't go as long as they've gone without the high-tier recognizable characters and then put out movies with disposable characters and expect people to show. So I think if some of these movies had been released even without COVID and just released in the theaters, I think they would have bombed for the most part. Dune did a lot better than I thought it was going to do, and Kong vs. Godzilla did. But the other ones that they released, for the most part, I don't think he made a mistake. He was trying to build up. He was given a mandate to build up HBO Max, which is, like I said, that's where they're going to be pulling a lot of their money from in the future. So that that was their focus. AT&T's focus was on that. They were focusing on streaming. They were focusing on getting getting that to the point where they had enough subscribers. I don't think it was because to be honest with you, I think a good number of people weren't going to see most of those movies if they didn't see them on HBO Max. I think it really helped the prospects for Dune 2. Because not only did you make a couple extra bucks in the theater, see, like what was Dune? What did Dune pull in? Dune 2021, because Dune, that's actually the best movie I think that got released. All right, so Dune 2021 in its box office, it made $402 million. All right, it made $402 million on a $165 million budget. I think that it being released on there gave a lot of people who would not have given that IP a chance. They went and saw it. I think a lot of those people, to be honest with you, after they saw it on their home TV screen, realized the size and scope of that movie. And I think a lot of those people went and saw it again on IMAX. So I think in that case it helped. But if it wasn't for if it had just been released in the movie theater, I don't know if you get a Dune 2. Because you built a following, a risk-free following. So why it backfired? Well, it backfired because a lot of the talent, didn't like. They figured, okay, well, my movie. Everybody thought that their movie could make more in the theaters than it would if you did it on day-and-day streaming. But if you look at some of the movies, like Tenet, they forced that into the movie theaters, and it ended up losing millions. So I don't think it was the worst idea in the world. Because it gave people a chance who weren't going to go see these movies, and they were never going to pay to see these movies. It got their eyeballs on that movie, and now when you start making movies like Dune 2, you got a lot of people who would have never gotten into the Frank Herbert IP and would have just looked at that as a long, boring movie. Now that they're on board with you. So I have a different opinion about it, so that's just me. DC's problem is they can't do movies without using Batman or Superman as a crutch. If Batman or Superman's heavily in my Justice League Dark movie, it will suck. But you're not the majority. If they base movies on what you want, what you just typed there right now, they're going to be having a yard sale for everything that's in the building. You ain't making no money. You are not making the money that keeps this going without Superman or Batman. And us hardcore people or lower core people that just want to think that they can get away with slapping obscure characters, you're seeing why that cannot happen. All right. DC has paid the price for what you just typed there. There are people that are no longer in their positions and are out of jobs now because they strayed away from what makes DC money and what makes other DC characters money. You cannot put the Z-listers ahead of the A-listers unless you want to end up with exactly what DC is going through right now. By the way, what do you think of Jason? I'd be honest with you, I thought he was put in a really bad position. I mean, the company, AT&T, didn't care about making Warner Brothers better. They just wanted to use it as a vessel for their technology. They wanted everybody using, AT&T products, and they figured if they owned that, they basically used it to highlight their stuff. That wasn't a good mission. I don't have a problem with Jason Kilar, what he was trying to do before, because he was making bold moves that needed to be made. So, all right. On the flip side of that con, also WBT is too chicken to try new things and going constantly back to the main players. We've seen them many times before. You're not happening. It is not happening. It begins and ends with Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, etc. You have no universe. You have no revenue streams. It's not being a chew chicken. It's understanding math. It's not wanting to get fired from your job. It's not wanting to get replaced. Now, that being said, the answer is both. Use the A-listers to highlight and bring in the Z-listers. Like right now, I don't care about Blue Beetle. Just don't care. I never cared about him as a character before this movie. The only reason Blue Beetle ever got my attention was because he was in a Justice League comic or he was in a Superman comic. And the general public is even general public. Joe Average does not care about Polka Dot Man, does not care about any of these obscure characters that you guys are bringing up. They don't care. And they are not going to pay for them. So we can do the fanboy thing, but when it comes to the people who actually have to make the money and pay the people and people keeping their jobs and not just executives, the guy all the way down at the bottom once they're off of strikes, you are going nowhere without the A-listers. If you want to bring in a Z-lister and you want to do that and have that carrying your franchise, you are asking for what DC is going through right now. It's not too chicken and being afraid of. It's reality. It's reality. It's, you could do it though. You can bring in these Z-listers. You can bring in a lot of these characters once you have strengthened the infrastructure of your universe. Marvel was what? How many movies were they in? And how many movies had they featured their mainline characters before they brought in the talking raccoon and the talking tree? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. Guardians of the Galaxy was the 10th movie released. 10th movie released in Marvel's in a universe that started in May 2nd, 2008, right? May 2nd, 2008. And 6 years later, movie number 10 is when they bought you anything less than an upper tier character. Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Thor, Captain America, The Avengers, this is a game changer as far as comic book movies goes. Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, which sucked. Captain America Winter Soldier, which I liked. Guardians of the Galaxy was number 10. So you got a healthy diet of the main cogs. And a lot of people say, well, nobody knew who Iron Man. Yes, they did. And even if you wanted to say that, which I think is horseshit, that's fine. That's fine. Let's concede that nobody knew, the general public didn't know who Iron Man is. If they did, they damn sure knew who Incredible Hulk was. They knew who Iron Man was the second time around. They knew who Thor was. Everybody knows who Captain America is. And by May 4th, 2012, they had released one of the biggest comic book movies of all time in Avengers. Iron Man 3, which did well. Thor the Dark World, which sucked. Captain America Winter Soldier, which I thought was good, did well. Then we got Guardians of the Galaxy. They didn't go to their Z-listers till they had they had built the trust and credibility with their A-listers. That's how you do it. DC didn't. DC went with this other direction after Hamad and all those guys took over. And look what it's got them. They struggle to get a $400 million movie. I love Shazam, but it shouldn't have been made. Fury of the Gods shouldn't have been made. Black Cat. These are movies. Blue Beetle. These are movies that you threw out there, and you want the general public to have that connection with the same connection with them as they did with the A-listers. Instead of using your A-listers to lead them to your Z-listers, you flip the script and you use your Z-listers as a support network now. And you did your Z-listers should be alongside your A-listers, not instead of your A-listers. And that's why DC is having a problem. That's why Blue Beetle is projected to flop, even though I don't think it will. That's why that's why all these movies, first time the question they're going to ask you, where's Superman? Where's Batman? So yeah, that risk to do something different comes at a cost. You just cannot, start with Z-listers at this point. And you cannot make them the backbone of your franchise, or you end up where we're at in DC. Yeah, that's easy to say when it's not your money. When it's not your hundreds of millions of dollars and it's not your investors, when it's not your job on the line. And that's not scared money. That's just common sense. No one's coming to your shit, your obscure stuff that nobody's ever heard of. And that's one of the primary reasons why Suicide Squad would have struggled no matter what situation it was in. Because they even ran Harley Quinn ran into the ground for a while to the point where she couldn't draw. Because guess what? COVID wasn't a known thing when Harley Quinn and the Emancipation of whatever the hell that was released. We didn't find out about COVID till 3 weeks after that. They promoted the hell out of that movie. And what did that movie do? That movie, the only non-obscure character in that movie was her, and she couldn't even carry that movie. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, that title was horrible, dude. They spent just the budget alone, 80 to 100 million, and I know because we were part of this campaign. They spent a hell of a lot more on advertisement. Because I had inflatable hammers. I still got buttons at the store. I got little dolls. I got keychains. I had baseball bat keychains. I had hammer keychains. I had shirts. I had all kinds of stuff, and we did all kinds of stuff. This was released in February 2020. This was before we knew what the hell was going on as far as COVID goes. Because 3 weeks later, obviously, we knew we were up against, and that movie struggled. So that wasn't. I mean, it's not scared money. You just got to use your brain. You know. Marvel reboot after King Dynasty and Secret Wars. When you think they will release Wakanda, show Black Panther? I don't know. I have no idea, man. Sorry. Warner Brothers owns every single character in the universe. Many other characters you can run a movie, not just streaming. But nobody cares about those characters. They because what you're supposed to do is use your main ones to make people care about those other characters. They haven't done that yet. That's why when they release these movies that have characters that nobody knows or cares about, they suffer because they didn't build it right. Because it was a liability to them. They no longer wanted to be in that game, and they got out. I saw it on release in theater too. We actually hosted a screening of it. All right. Yeah, sure. Let's see. All right, one thing Marvel did was making A-list characters in almost every movie. Captain America: Civil War was a ton of Tony Stark and Captain America. Like I said, yeah, exactly. They gave you a healthy diet because if you release the Talking Raccoon and the Talking Tree as movie number one, somebody's getting fired. Somebody is getting into a new profession because, and first of all, like I said, that would have never happened because no exec in their right mind would have ever greenlit Guardians of the Galaxy without the history that Marvel had built up to that point. Without those previous 9 movies, you won't get Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, a lot of people knew Iron Man. I think when people told me it's obscure. No, that is far from true. Yeah, but see, no one went to go see that movie based on a comic book adaptation. They went to go see because it was Wesley Snipes, and Wesley Snipes near the height of his career. I mean, you're not. That's a different world. We're not in the '90s anymore. People are drawn to these movies because of their comic book IPs, even if they don't read the comic book. So no one knowing who Blade wasn't really a factor in whether Blade was good or not back in the '90s. And the kind of Blade movie and Blade, like I said, it's not. That's the kind of money that Blade. Let's see, Blade, Wesley Snipes. All right, let's see. Let's go back. Let's do some time traveling that really doesn't apply because. All right, let's see. Jungle Fever. Damn, I mean, at that height of his, he was literally a major A-lister. All right, so for its time, Blade made good money, but if you look at why Blade made good money, we weren't talking about a comic book universe that people were enthralled in. That is why your audience is what dictates this. Right now, your 2021 audience isn't going for obscure obscure characters like this. And if you look at the main characters, and let's see. The main movies made Blade 2, so Blade 1 made $450 million. All right, so you wouldn't be able to build a franchise because the next movie plunged almost $300 million. Because, like I said, this was Wesley Snipes. This was Wesley Snipes driving that movie at the time of his career. You could have renamed it anything else, and it wouldn't have mattered. So different time, not the best comparison. Sorry. Yeah, that helped. DC saw that 1.1 billion in Avengers and made fast tracked everything. Yeah, and they didn't need to catch up. DC does not need to catch up to anybody. They are DC, and the perception that they fell into was fanboy nonsense and pundit nonsense. And they didn't have strong enough executives to say, you know what, we're DC. We're going to do things our way. We're going to tell our stories, because you didn't have executives that cared enough about DC at the time. The one thing about James Gunn is he understands the DC product. You can say anything else you want about him, but he understands the DC product, the impact of DC's characters and their IPs. Marvel or DC didn't have that at the time, unfortunately, and that's why we're here where we're at. No, because there's different standards. There's going to be different standards. You're not going to be able to put, like I said, you're not going to be able to make money off of Z-listers. And James Gunn knows it. Why do you think Superman is top priority? First movie out, Superman Legacy. He's not starting with Booster Gold. He's not starting with the Phantom. He's starting with the character that people know. He's using Superman as a spotlight to shine on everything else he wants to do. And that's the way it's supposed to be done. Not good. Where you like I said, this ain't time travel. You're talking about an era that does not exist for them anymore. That genie is out of the bottle, and it's not going back in, nor do they want it to go back in. Tony Stark was not only an A-list character, he's a founding member of the Avengers. Enough people knew that. Also, you had a recognizable name, even though his career wasn't where it was. You still knew who Robert Downey Jr. was. And he was top tier that they had available. Well, a lot of the people don't forget that here's the difference between DC and Marvel. DC has not used the top tier that they have available to them. Marvel did. They didn't have the Fantastic Four. They didn't have Spider-Man. They didn't have a lot of these other characters that Fox and other people had owned. They used the top tier characters that they had that were available to them. They had all the founding Avengers available to them, and they used them. They were telling an Avengers story. So whether Tony Stark was an A-list character or not is irrelevant, because once you decide that you're going to tell the founding of the Avengers, you generally did what they did, and that was give you all the founding members of the Avengers. Like I said, with the exception of Scarlet Witch and Hawkeye and all that, because they switched those out because they wanted to do bigger things with them. Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, your primary founding Avengers. The ones they switched out were Ant-Man and Wasp, and they used them later on. But your primary, and then you had Captain America and Avengers number 4. So within the first 5 issues of the Avengers, you had the characters. Even your main villain in that movie was the same one that they faced in Avengers number 1. So whether or not Tony Stark was an A-list character, he was. It was irrelevant. Once you decided that you were going to tell a pretty true to source, for the most part, Avengers founding story, you were using him. So by that rationale, cast Keanu Reeves as Constantine and you'll get a Blade result. Not necessarily, because before John Wick, why would I? First of all, why would I do that if I'm telling a different Constantine story? And if I'm investing in DC and I'm your boss, if you come in here with Constantine, if you come in here with some Z-list shit, I'm going to fire you. Right now, at 8:17, 1:03 in the morning, If you come into my office and your first step out of the door, your first 2 or 3 steps out of the door doesn't have a red S or a black bat on it, you're fired. You are fired. We went through this. We did this. I've had 5 years of Z-listers, and look what it got us. If you come into the office and your little file folder doesn't have Superman or Batman on it as your first steps. Now, that other folder with all these obscure stuff that you guys are just thinking that's going to make money and it's not, you can have that in another folder. That can be part of your presentation down the line or part of it. But if you come in with that and the other folder doesn't have the red S or the bat on it, you're fired. You're done. And no executive in their right mind would keep you on. Your ass better be starting with the main line. We can compromise. We can talk about all your other obscure stuff later on. But right now, you start with that red S or that bat or that golden lasso or that green ring, or your replacement will. Captain America Marvel would have never made $1 billion at the box office as a standalone movie. Nah, and none of them would have. Oh, Captain Marvel. Yeah, no. I thought you were talking about Captain America. Yeah, Captain Marvel. Yeah, and that's a thing though, and that's what DC needs to do. If you want to make that kind of money and you want to get that kind of like leeway, you got to create a situation that everybody buys into. Everybody went to that movie because they bought into the situation. How did they get to that situation? The main line characters got them there. Ironically, Blade was made under Warner Brothers' New Line Cinema. Without that trilogy, Marvel was going to go. No. A lot of people say that. The sale of Spider-Man to Sony is what got Marvel out of the red. The sale of that is what, and then that's what got them into the next. The sale of Marvel, because the money that Blade made, that a lot of that money got split up amongst theaters, everything else. The money that they made off the sale of Spider-Man and other characters, they made enough that they got to keep all that money. DBWV shouldn't be trying another lame universe. Only Marvel pulled that off. Everyone else tried and failed. No, fuck that. DC created the shared movieverse. Marvel managed their right. You shouldn't stop doing what you need to do something right. You don't need to stop doing something because some other idiot did it wrong. You hire the people that can do it right. That's a failure mentality. I mean, if I'm running a company, I cannot have this mentality. I got tired of people saying that DCU should have done standalone movies first. No. He was on the right track. It was just bad management from BVS on. Yeah, no, it's not. But at the same time, when you have executives backing you, you have that kind of time. And there was enough top tier characters in those first 6 years of Marvel. You cannot tell me that. And then plus they marketed it. Once you saw the first trailer for Iron Man, you were in. There's nobody that I knew that said, "Oh, I'm not going to go see that." And other people don't realize they just didn't, show up out of nowhere with Iron Man. For the most part, and you can say whatever you want about certain movies that Fox made, certain movies that Sony made. You had multiple X-Men movies, most of which, not all, people liked. You had Spider-Man 1, and then you had Spider-Man 2, which is regarded, and in my opinion, I agree, is one of the greatest comic book sequels of all time. Before you even got to Iron Man, and remember, the general fan didn't know what the hell an MCU was, because it didn't exist. But Marvel's name on movies did. So they had that credibility as well. And plus, like I said, they were using top-tier characters that they had available to them. But people knew who Thor was. People knew who the Hulk was. Everybody knew who the Hulk was. And they had already had that one out there. So, different situation. All right, it was also stupid that Kevin I just bringing up this guy's name. Even though I mispronounce his name every time, I just start calling him shithead. said that DC movies are steeped in realism and edgier than the movies coming from Marvel Studios until the reaction to BVS. Yeah, he just wasn't the right guy. If Jeff Robinoff would have gotten that job, we wouldn't even be here right now because there would be no, we wouldn't be talking about things that never happened. To be honest with you, without shared universes or at least a trilogy, I would lose that. Yeah, I would lose interest in them. Right, that's right. So I'm not going to see Blue Beetle. One of the reasons why I'm not going to see Blue Beetle. And why before all these other movies, I was like fighting whether I wanted to go see him or not. We ended up promoting 3 out of the 4, and the fact that we're not even promoting Blue Beetle 2, that just really is like I don't even have an excuse to go see it right now, because it's go see it because it's a good movie. Now, if that works for you, great. I am a comic book guy. The shared universe created by DC, the concept of a shared universe created by DC, to me is a great storytelling mechanism when you figure how long it takes to make these movies and like that. I want to buy into an overall experience. That's me. I'm not saying that's the right answer for everybody else, but that's me. That's a lot of people I know. I'm not getting in the car for you to just take me around the corner. I'm getting in for you to take me on a trip. So that's just me. But yeah, my interest is not there without some of these things. And that's, to be honest with you, that is one of the things that has hurt these movies. When they were before the reboot was announced, you gave us all this unconnected stuff that nobody cared about and people just didn't see it. And then you blamed it on us fans or Snyder or, bots or whatever the hell boneheaded name they come up for. It's the general audience that doesn't care about this stuff. See, you guys, some of you guys are fighting against the math that the general audience has presented you. Not me. The math is there. The results are there. All right, would you consider Kevin T. Shire, Toby Emmerich to be the worst executive? I would no for this. My scope is only for what they did or didn't do for Warner Brothers. Neither one of those guys were the right people for the job, and they hired people that weren't the right people for the job. They're all gone now, so I can move on. No, I think there's still crap tons of money to be made. All right, guys. Oh wow, I went an hour and 25 minutes. I need to go turn this massage thing on back and get my back going. I need to eat my food, and I need to go to bed because I got a long 4 days weekend. We still got a lot of stuff that I'm dealing with at the store to get things right for the holidays. And keep an eye out for our other videos. I'm finally going to put on my cover story video pretty soon. I'm almost done with that. I got some other stuff coming on. Be here, Saturday night for our Saturday Overnighter, which will exclusively be on the Sci-Fi Centers Network. So if you have not subscribed to our channel, it is right under my name there. But I'll go ahead and put the link in there for you, so that you guys can just go ahead and join in, because like I said, I don't know exactly when Enosh is returning, but I'm going to start moving my stuff out of the way so he has his time to do his. And plus, the only reason I went at Simulcast a couple weeks back was to give you all the information from San Diego Comic-Con, because I wanted both audiences to give that. But right now, we're going to head back to building our audience on the Sci-Fi Centers YouTube channel, so our main show will be exclusively theirs again, starting this Saturday night, 9 o'clock. I got some pretty good guests lined up. I finally got some more independent movie makers. Depending on what the news is, we might have some more. So, all right, guys, stay healthy. Be good to each other. Make sure to subscribe and like this channel. There you go. And share the gospel that is the Sci-Fi Center, if you could. All right, guys, have a good night. I'm done.